Well, Alastair Campbell is with us to make his case. Also with us is Trevor Kavanagh, Associated Editor of The Sun. Very good evening to you. Look, can we just see whether you agree on the objective? Trevor, do you think it is a job of a newspaper to present the information about the EU and its workings in such a way that will help readers make up their mind?
Absolutely.
Why don't you do it?
We do.
Well, give us some examples of things you think that they've done which doesn't help the reader make up their mind.
Well, they present only one side of the story. So, for example, a really serious economic figure like Mark Carney, the Governor of Bank of England, goes to a committee of MPs, is asked questions, says what he thinks. The Archbishop of Canterbury makes a pretty thoughtful statement. Both of those occasions, most of the papers, the right-wing papers, which I would say Sun, Times, to a lesser extent, Express, Star, Mail, and may I say, at least Trevor's got the balls to come here, unlike Dacre at the Mail. And the Mail probably is the worst of this. But what they do is I know I'm called the spin doctor, they spin the whole thing in one direction. Mark Carney is part of Project Fear. The Archbishop of Canterbury was actually saying, because he did say it's not racist to worry about immigration, they presented that as though he was somehow backing the case. And also they do tell lies. They write stories that are completely and totally untrue.
So yeah, that's a different thing.
Let me ask you, Trevor, has the European Union banned hairdressers from wearing high heels? Has the European Union...
Have we said they did?
Yes. No, what you've said is they were going to. Has the European Union forced us to call Christmas a winter festival?
Did they specify these as facts, or did they make these as suggestions?
Oh, please. The Sun has been running this sort of story for decades.
Right. The trouble
and they're doing them now.
Enough.
The thing about Alastair is that he forgets that he and I have known each other for a very long time. He probably forgets actually a conversation we had, which I noted in my diary at the time, in which he told me that he's never been a journalist in his view. He's always been a propagandist. Now, I also suspect...
At least I admit it.
Well, wait.
At least I admit it.
Let him finish.
I also suspect that he's actually a Eurosceptic. He's peddling in line because he's a propagandist. We are not. We believe in what we're saying. We've always had the same stance. We are a newspaper. We are entitled to have a view. We are entitled to have an editorial view. We've always stood out against the European Constitution, against the European single currency, and we've always stood out against mass, uncontrolled immigration. Right. That's a position from which we look through the prism. And that's
inconsistent with what you said 2 minutes ago, where you said your job was to give people information on which they could base a decision.
And we have carried many opinion pieces by people who are for the European Union.
And that is where you were wrong, isn't it? They do carry some pieces. Let's not call it balanced. They do carry pieces on both sides of the argument.
Yes. They do not present two sides of an argument.
Yes, we do.
You do not.
No,
let me just give you a list.
You're simply saying you do not. We do.
They do. First of all, Trevor, let me just say, I admit I have a bias in this, OK?
So
I admit it.
I admit it.
You admit it's a bias. Right. What I don't do, though, and what I never did as a journalist, is make up stories, and I believe that your paper and the Mail and these other papers, you had one, the Express, for example. You have papers. Well, you're going to have... Wait a minute.
Bloody rich, actually.
Let me just finish. Can I finish the point?
He never made up stories.
Listen, can I make the point?
Having worked on the other side of the fence during the years when Alastair was in
Wait. Trevor has had less say, so I'm going to let Trevor speak.
But he hasn't said anything other than make an inconsistent point.
Repeat your point about Alastair's critique.
Well, as I say, we have a point of view. We've had a long-established point of view. It's a perfectly respectable point of view. Right. We believe that the European Union lacks a democratic accountability, and that is the essence...
Are you giving your readers the information to help them make a decision?
We're telling them that Brexit was an abysmal failure, a catastrophic failure, which you supported and propagandised.
You're telling them Brexit?
No. The European single currency was a dismal failure. You supported it from the very beginning. You propagandised it from the very beginning.
A minute ago, you told me I was a Eurosceptic.
Well, let me put this to you. When you were in government, did you ever, for example, selectively pick evidence in order to propagate or promote a case?
Yes, he did.
No,
well, heavens.
I would support government policy. We would have a position and promote it. But wait a minute. For all the newspapers, to be fair to Trevor, not Trevor, but certainly papers like the Mail, would sort of call us liars and all the rest of it. We were very, very careful not to. I'm simply making the point. I gave you a couple of trivial examples. Let me give you less trivial examples. The Sun has reported in the past that because of Europe, we're going to get rid of Christmas. Because of Europe. Yes, you've said that, Trevor.
But come on.
No, I'm not.
We're talking about big
Anyway,
issues here.
We're
not
talking
whether or
about
not
big
we-
issues, and my issue
And the
with you
big issue
is you're
is-
not giving the public fair, balanced coverage about these issues.
What's interesting is, were you as critical when the papers were on your side of the argument?
Probably not. Probably
so
not.
when they were making fun of William Hague and calling his Tories a dead parrot, or in the Scottish independence referendum, why didn't you make the same argument?
What they shouldn't
Because
do,
he helped to build the
what
argument,
they
that's
shouldn't do
why.
is make up stories. Let me give you another one.
No, so let me ask.
Brexit and the Queen.
Let me ask.
I thought they were great believers in the Constitution.
Trevor can't answer that. He's on the board of IPSO, which is investigating.
I'd like to.
There's a very interesting.
I'd love to answer it, but I can't.
I'm going to put a
You will answer
Your
it.
editor, Tony Gallagher, said they did audience research of what the readers believed, and that guided us to some extent editorially in terms of how we're covering the vote. This is the most interesting thing, that it's actually as though you think the readers are telling you what to write rather than you telling what the readers what to vote
I've
for.
told you that for the last 35 years, I became political editor in 1983. From that moment on, and before, we have had a sceptical view,
And indeed.
a very strong sceptical view,
And it's driven your
and
news
we've
coverage.
been proven right on every single count, on the Constitution, on the Euro, and on the control of the borders and mass uncontrolled immigration. And frankly, I think that we are the ones who have been proven right, and the propagandists in the hands of Alastair
this
Campbell
Eurosceptic over here?
self-professed Eurosceptic propagandist like Alastair, who is singing a tune because he works for a PR company that represents this
Trevor, if I may say so, I
it's rich, isn't it?
believe...
Oh, you can say what you like.
I don't have to do anything.
You're accusing us of all sorts of terrible calumnies.
Trevor, let me finish. I have no vested interest in this whatsoever.
No.
Other than my own opinion.
Personal view.
Please give me that
Clearly
respect.
not.
And let me just ask Trevor this.
Plus his
you talk
hatred of
about
the
fair and
tabloid
balanced
newspapers.
opinion. You talk about fair and balanced opinion. How much coverage did you give to the IMF, the OECD, Shell, BMW, Rolls-Royce, Morgan Stanley, Vauxhall, UBS, Centrica, NATO, all of whom saying stay in Europe, and some guy from British Chambers of Commerce is elevated to sort of godlike status because he fits your agenda?
Well, we certainly gave publicity to Nissan, Ford and all the motor companies who said their operations in Britain would continue as if it doesn't make any difference whether we're in or out. Is that reasonable?
Now, look, let me ask you this.
No, it doesn't answer his
because
question, though.
your editor has said he still hasn't made up his mind.
Oh, no.
As to how you're going to, how the Sun is going to vote. And
God
some
almighty.
raised an eyebrow at that for two reasons. One is
Because
it's
he
not
knows
the
the
editor's
truth.
decision, and the other is that you are going to support Brexit. Just clarify on those two.
Well, look, I think that we can't give our verdict until we've weighed all the evidence in the paper every day, giving both sides of the argument.
Phones you up.
But
are you being a
with-
little ironic here?
just
Do I see a little twinkle?
a little ironic in the sense that I think, personally, that there is no argument.
You think
So it's over.
Europe is a
So it's
busted
over.
flush.
And because
Europe
you
is a
think
mess.
that, your
Europe has
readers
made
should
a
not
mess.
be given
You've
both
got-
sides
you've
of the
got
story.
millions
makes
of
the decision?
unemployed in
Who is
Britain.
going to make the decision for the Sun? Is
Rupert Murdoch.
Rupert Murdoch. Thank
Can
you
I have a
both very
piece in the
much
paper
indeed.
tomorrow?
Thanks very
Why?
much indeed.
Why would what you
Because
paper?
take that
For
offline.
God's sake.
You say you're going to put other people in the
You're
other side of
boring.
the opinion.
Honestly, Alice, you're really, really
All right,
boring.
thanks,
All right,
gents.
okay.
Thanks very much.